بسم الله الذي لا إله سواه والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وآله وأصحابه ومن والاه. اللهم افتح مسامع قلوبنا لذكرك. Ya Allah, please open the hearing channels of our hearts to that which reminds us of you. اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه. Ya Allah, please help us see truth and recognize it as truth. Give us the strength to embrace it. اللهم أرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه. Ya Allah, please help us see falsehood and make us recognize it as falsehood and give us the strength to avert it and to keep away from it. Ameen. Last Tuesday, who summarized what we covered? Somebody needs to do better. Somebody needs to do better. That's good, jazakumullah khair, but take it more seriously. Otherwise I'm going to change my discourse and talk about other things, not these things. Because I believe what I have been sharing with you, and I'll continue today, you don't find it everywhere. You don't find it in many books. It's very important. It's very useful. It's not very common among the lay people, and it's simple. It's logical and simple, and I believe I'm speaking to people who are, alhamdulillah, very well educated, at least rationally speaking, and then you can hopefully appreciate that, and that we learn to discuss our matters of deen in the logic of the deen, which is very logical and very proof-oriented and very methodological. So that's what we need to grasp, hopefully, as we go along. I think what we have covered last time, if I were to summarize what I shared with you, if I were to summarize it, first of all, we spoke of a spiritual dimension, then we started to speak of a rational dimension, so that we never forget that everything we learn in our deen, however rational it is, must always be in a spiritual envelope. Never forget that. Never forget that. And then I gave few things about that, and then I switched to let's talk rational. And in that, well, I first asked you the question about, to some it's a reminder about the sources of Islamic knowledge. Adillatul Shara. What are the sources of Islamic knowledge from which in Islam scholarship derives injunctions, legal injunctions and verdicts and ahkam? And it is said usually Quran and Sunnah. If it's not in Quran and Sunnah, then there is nothing. Again, I said this is the words of the lay people. Lay, even if they go to school, even if they have degrees, even they are lay people. They're not the experts in the deen, in the shara. Those experts in the shara don't say that. If they say that, they know what they mean, not what the lay people think they mean. That is, yes, the most primary source of Sharia, of Islamic knowledge, is the Quran. And then we said the Quran tells us that the Sunnah is the source. So everything goes back to the Quran, but the primary source is the Quran. The primary sources is the Quran and the Sunnah. And the Sunnah is a source, a primary source from the very words of the Quran. And sometimes we have spoken about that. That's by itself another course. And in addition to that, and from that, there are other sources of knowledge. Ijma', as you mentioned, قياس، استحسان، سد الذرائع، المصالح المرسلة، الاستصحاب، العرف، شرع من قول الصحابي، شرع من قبلنا at the end. So these are many. And something, if it is not in the Quran nor in the Sunnah, therefore we don't pay attention to it, that's not Islamic scholarship. That's not Islamic law. Show me the Quran in the Quran, show me in the Sunnah. That's not good enough. The Quran and the Sunnah, if you really understand the Quran and the Sunnah, you can't say that. The Quran and the Sunnah, those who memorize well the Quran and understand well the Quran and memorize a lot of the hadith, and those who have memorized bundles of hadith and are very strongly logical as well and spiritual, have derived from the Quran and the Sunnah all these other means of Shari'i reasoning, sources of our Islamic knowledge, of which are the ijma' and the qiyas and the istihsan and sadd al-dhara'i, masalih al-mursala, al-istishab, ila ghayri dhalik. Keep that in mind. That's very important. And that one point, you did mention that just as an example, when somebody says, well, we follow the Quran and the Sunnah, don't tell me what scholar X said or Y said. Quran and Sunnah. We have the Quran and the Sunnah. What did we say the answer should be if we understand what we're doing? Kevin, what was the answer in this case? In other words, the issue is not Abu Hanifa versus the Quran and the Sunnah and you or your teacher. The issue is the Quran and the Sunnah. No one is called expert, i.e., mujtahid, who does not use the Quran and the Sunnah, or who disregards it, or who gives it secondary position. That's not even a student of knowledge, truly, let alone a scholar, let alone an expert scholar, i.e. mujtahid. It's inconceivable, it doesn't exist, that an expert scholar like Imam Malik or Imam Abu Hanifa or Shafi'i or Imam Ahmad or Sufyan al-Thawri or Ibn Uyayna or even the later ones, rahimahumullah ta'ala, would not use the Quran and Sunnah. So it's not about Quran and Sunnah and you or them or your teacher. As we said, no. You know what it is? It's about who understands the Quran and the Sunnah. Who is more equipped intellectually and spiritually to analyze the Quran and the Sunnah. You, your teacher, or the likes of Abu Hanifa, Malik, Shafi'i, Ahmad, Al-Bukhari, Muslim, down the line, Al-Nawawi, Ibn Hajar, Al-Asqalani, Al-Shawkani, down the line. That's the issue. If you don't know, well, I'm not a scholar, I'm not even a student of knowledge. When I'm arguing, you would say, it's not Quran and Sunnah versus others. No, astaghfirullah. See, I am not a Bukhari or a Muslim or a Abu Hanifa or a Shafi'i. All I can tell you that when Bukhari tells me, or when Abu Hanifa tells me, or when Shafi'i tells me on an issue, I know from my culture as a Muslim, just in that general statement, I know from my culture as a Muslim that no scholar of that caliber would pass the Quran and Sunnah. And they have what you don't have, of understanding of all of the other sources of Islamic knowledge and the intellectual ability, the rational ability, and the spiritual sensitivity to deal with those issues and to understand them and to explain them. That's the issue. So, whoever it is, well, when you're going to Quran and the Sunnah, what do you mean Quran and Sunnah? How you understand it? I'm sure even the way you are doing it is somebody told you that. So it is either you or your teacher versus these. Especially on issues, particularly in issues that are not new, that did not exist before. For issues that are new and innovative, did not exist before, it is very important, of course, to have the opinion of the current living expert scholars in those fields. So that's very important, as I said. And plus, it's not only that. In order to come to a conclusion, there is not only Al-Quran and Sunnah, they are the primary sources, but all of these. It might not be at all in the Quran or in the Sunnah explicitly. It is not. And one has to be scholarly, expertly equipped to find a solution from within the other sources of Islamic knowledge to the problem, to the issue. And that's what happens sometimes, but people who don't know that or ignore that or forget that, they end up in very, very uncomfortable situations for themselves and for others as well, who might not be also well equipped to respond properly. And we said, even if it were in the Quran and the Sunnah, even if the issue is textual in the Quran and or in the Sunnah, it is still a matter of what? Understanding. And understanding is based on certain rules and axioms and theorems and principles and methodologies that these expert scholars have lived all their lives, not only learning but practicing and refining along with the spiritual, mashallah, the spiritual acumen and the spiritual readiness that is very, very instrumental in making things sometimes in the religious sense, which are rationally religious or are religiously rational. It's very important for that spiritual dimension to be there, also with the rational efficacy to be able to make the proper solution. So even in the Quran and in the Sunnah, how and who understands it? You bring to me the Quran and the Sunnah, alhamdulillah. But it's, again, if the expert does that, it's alhamdulillah. But then what does it mean? And on the basis of what rules that meaning is suggested or omitted. And this is where you have, like we said, in each field we have the experts of the field. In math you have the experts. You know, a teacher of math, a bachelor's degree, a BS degree in mathematics doesn't make you an expert in mathematics. A master's, you'll call it master's degree in math doesn't make you an expert scholar in mathematics. Sometimes at some level in the beginning, even a PhD. Yes. Unless a person continues in their PhD through research and learning more and may end up to be a mujtahid in mathematics. Or in medicine, or in chemistry, or in physics. وهكذا. So when we have an expert scholar or expert scholars, mujtahidun, telling us when we study and learn, we go to the experts through reading and through direct communication with them as well. And if I find through reading or direct communication with expert scholars that the answer to this issue in religious sense is this, whether they mention their basis explicitly or they do not, they are not mujtahidun unless they had a basis and a process and a methodology in the Shari'i sense to use to come to a conclusion. Even though they don't tell you that, they tell you this is the hukm. What they have not told you is the black box. What happens in the processing of the question in their minds and in their hearts through what happens in that box of knowledge of the Quran and the Sunnah and the rules of analysis linguistically and juristically and the objectives of the Shara, the general objectives, the specific objectives, and many, many things. And then they come up with statements. If they did not mention the statement, you don't say, well, you see, they didn't use the Quran and the Sunnah. Nobody, no scholar worth the name, not even we said a true student of knowledge, would not use the Quran and the Sunnah first. So, even when there is Quran and there is Sunnah on certain specific issues, what they mean, I need to go to the experts versus what you and I can guess or we practice. So it's not about rejecting or accepting the Quran and the Sunnah, ma'allah. Again, it's about what you tell me it means and what he tells me it means. What Abu Hanifa says it means, or Shafi'i, or Ahmad, or Malik, or the likes of those galaxies of scholars, what they tell me the ruling is versus what you tell me or your sheikh tells you to tell me at this level, in this time. And of course, technically speaking, rationally speaking, if we have a super expert and an expert and they differ, which one logically we take? The super expert in any matter. If we have 1,000 experts or 100 experts or dozens of experts versus the opinion even of one expert or two experts, which one we take logically when we are not ourselves experts? Of course. That's how we do all the time. That's rational. And that's actually required. That's required. فَاسْأَلُوا أَهْلَ الذِّكْرِ إِن كُنْتُمْ لَا تَعْلَمُونَ, as Allah Azza wa Jalla says. Inquire from those experts when you don't know. And if the experts differ, then the experts, 10 of them and 2 of them, we go to the 10 of them because that's the experts. Because they're statistically more experts than, probabilistically speaking and statistically speaking, than the 2 experts. And in that case, I gave you an example. I started to give you an example, which is, for some reasons, I gave that example, and that you were trying to elude at. In that context, I gave this example. Here is a text. لا تشد الرحال إلا إلى 3 مساجد. المسجد الحرام ومسجد هذا والمسجد الأقصى. Says Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, end of quote. It is in accordance to all critiques and authentic hadith. And we explained that tushaddu rihal. I'm not going to go back to it. What tushaddu rihal is metaphorically. The point is, you do not initiate a travel, a safar, traveling on a journey, except, it says textually, except to 3 masajid. To 3 masajid, to 3 mosques. Al-Masjid al-Haram, Al-Masjid al-Nabawi, and Al-Masjid al-Aqsa. So this is a text. It's in the Sunnah, it's authentic. What does it mean? And we have said that, up to the time of the following scholar, rahimahullah ta'ala, Imam Ibn Taymiyyah, rahimahullah ta'ala, up to that point, the scholars before, from reading the chronicles and the history and the fatawi and the arguments, etc., up to that point, they did not understand the text the way Ibn Taymiyyah understood it, rahimahullah ta'ala. Both have the text. He understood from it this thing. Thank you. He understood from it one thing, but the vast majority of expert mujtahids like him, and some less than him, and some better than him, did not understand it that way. So what he understood from this, rahimahullah ta'ala, he uses this text to say, look, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, you cannot travel, you cannot initiate a travel except to 3 masajid. And he mentioned those 3 masajid. So, those who say, and used to do up to that point for centuries, to travel from wherever they are to visit the grave of Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam in al-Madinah. Specifically that. He says, if you do that, you're committing a sin, a ma'asiyah. Why? Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam said, do not travel to any place except these 3 masajid. See the text. This is part of the argument. Now, assuming what I communicated to you is right, you have to think that way, to be critical of everything. Assuming what I communicated to you is right, and it is right, inshallah. And my translation of the text, assume it is right, and I believe it is right. Now, what is the text saying? Many times we don't think. Even those who can think somehow, we don't think. Especially when we have built alliances, and we have built friendships, and we have built relations, which are emotional, they affect our rationality. And we don't think right. And we pass. Sometimes doing it innocently because of that psychological condition. And sometimes we do it until we defend it tooth and nail. And this is what happens sometimes. And this issue is still defended by some tooth and nail. And yet, does the text say don't go visit the grave of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, meaning don't initiate a travel to visit the grave of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? Does the text say that explicitly? Does it say it? Obviously not. It does not. So it is, at best, what is it called in English, in logic? It's an inference. It's an inference. And an inference is not equal to an explicitness, an explicit meaning. This is implicit. This is inferred. It's not sarih. It's not direct. It's not obvious. It's not literal. It's hidden. It's inferred. And logically, which one is stronger logically? An inference or a direct evidence? Now, if by inference you say it means that way, but directly it doesn't say that. It says don't start a journey except to 3 masajid. And if you take it like that generally, then as we said, generally, if you take it directly, the direct meaning from that text, what does it mean? You do not travel except to 3 masajid. What does this mean? What am I telling you? If I tell you, do not travel except to these 3 masajid. Pardon me?
You are allowed to travel, initiate travel
Yeah.
to these masajid,
Aywa?
and not allowed to travel other than these masajid.
What is other than? Give me examples.
Any masajid not included in this list.
No, you're not right. So, example, where can you not travel? Yes. Do not travel except to 3 masajid. What am I telling you? If you understand it directly, through direct approach and direct logic, that's it. Don't travel anywhere except to these 3 masajid. That's what the text is saying. لا تشد الرحال إلا إلى 3 مساجد. You should not initiate a travel except to these 3 masajid. And that means you do not travel. Anything that is called travel, safar, you cannot do except if you're traveling to these 3 masajid. And is that logically and possibly what Rasulullah ﷺ meant? Could have meant? No, because it is the argument, it is with ijma' that you can go visit your parents, that you can go travel on a business, that you can go travel on leisure, you can go travel wherever you want. You can travel to seek knowledge, this is all ijma'. Anything halal, you can travel. Oh, and he said, no, we didn't mean that. Now we're starting. That's exactly the point. You see, it's a matter of understanding. Oh, we didn't mean that exactly. Specifically, that's what it is. We didn't mean that. What did you mean? That's what you were trying to say, because you were already going a step ahead. Because you felt the discomfort of that illogical necessity. So you would say, no, because it says, لا تشد الرحال إلا إلى 3 مساجد. We cannot travel except to 3 masajid. And in the Arabic language, إلا is called istithna. And if you say, I do something except إلا, that which is the exception must be of the same type as what? As the original set. If you have a set and an exception from that set, so the exception has to be the same genre, the same type as the set. Logically, if I say no, if I say, for example, no one can come into this masjid, or not, everybody can come into this masjid except a donkey. What must you understand? Say, why did you stop? See? Why did you stop? You see, sometimes it's not as clear as people think. Oh, this is clear, this is obvious. It means this, it means that. Oh, so what's happening here? Well, nobody shall enter this masjid except a donkey. But donkey? You look around, you're in the plane there. This donkey, what donkey? But because logically, in the logic of the language, you know that the exception must be of the same type as the original set. So this, for a moment, doesn't make sense to you. It should not. Because it should be of the same type. That's why the ulama of language and of logic, they say, this cannot be said in the Arabic language except if you mean it metaphorically. except if you mean it metaphorically. That donkey, you don't mean a donkey. You mean somebody who is, who is not very smart. Let's put it this way. In other words, when Rasulullah said, do not initiate a travel to, except to 3 masajid, he must have been saying, as many ulama have said, one solution. He must have been saying, do not initiate a travel to any masjid. Do not initiate a safar to any masjid for the sake, in other words, of things you do in masajid. For special worship, for salah. Don't pick a special masjid to do that, except if you did that for one of these 3. In other words, as though he's saying, yes, do not initiate a travel to any masjid except to these 3 masajid. Because the exception is to be of the same type as the original set. The original set then has to be masajid. So in other words, they have answered the Imam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala from this perspective. For example, it's one way to answer, many other ways. It's a matter of understanding. This cannot be. This understanding cannot hold, because then it would make all travels, except to these 3 places, any travel forbidden. But since you and we know by consensus that that's not the case, travel are halal, as long as they are not ma'siyah, then this does not mean that. Number 1. Number 2, they also said, look, like Imam Taqiyuddin al-Subki rahimahullah ta'ala, he says, look, even if we take it that way, either to say, do not initiate a travel to any place except these 3 places. Second, with the intent of veneration and worship. لتعظيم المكان. Those travel are forbidden if we go to any place with the intent of venerating that place, and if it is not the 3 masajid. But he says, because therefore the person who goes visiting his parents does not fall in this category, because he does not go to visit his parents to venerate his parents or to worship his parents. And that's fine. The person who goes does business, the person who goes to learn ilm, the person who goes to visit friends in another country. All of this does not fall in this category, they say to him, because it's not veneration, and it's not veneration, and it's outside these 3 places. But they said to him, rahimahullah ta'ala, when we go visit, we say we visit the grave of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So, don't initiate a travel to any place except to these 3 masajid. Let's now take that part. Any place. Those who visit go to the grave of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Are they going to the grave? Listen to the argument. Actually, what is happening? This is Taqiyuddin al-Subki, that expert scholar also. When you go visit the grave of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, where do you go? To the grave? No, wrong. Okay. Before the grave was inside the Masjid al-Nabawi, it was outside. Okay. Now you still to visit Rasulullah. So you go visit Rasulullah. You don't go to the grave. Assume there is a grave, an empty grave. You go to a grave. You don't go to a grave. That's the way we speak. It's majaz. We go actually to visit whom? Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So then they said, this doesn't even apply, because when we go visit so-called the grave of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, we're not visiting al-makan, we're not going to the place. We're going to al-makin, to the one who is in the place. So the text doesn't apply because the text applies to places, masajid. And these are places. We're not going to a place even. We're going to Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The arguments are very many. My point by this is what?
Ways to understand tools, methodologies.
A text doesn't mean your answer is the answer, or your sheikh's answer is the answer. Text, yes. What do the texts mean? And who has the expertise, rationally and scholarly and morally and spiritually, the expertise to delve in those texts and extract the juice in those texts? Who does that? And therefore it's a matter, even when we don't know these things, for us the matter is, now if the expert scholars differ, first of all, if they are expert scholars, you have to respect all of them. And you cannot, as long as an expert scholar, even one expert scholar, says something different, you cannot anymore call it this is shirk or kufr. If your opinion is that, you cannot use that to say it is. When the expert scholars, especially when they are a multitude, especially if they are a majority, especially if they are unanimity, then one cannot logically say that is that way, that is this way. Oh, you say you practice that? We practice that? And Allah Azza wa Jal is the final judge. As long as it is expert scholarly opinion, mujtahid opinion. And logical safety is with following a majority of experts or a minority of experts, let alone one or two experts. That's what the logic requires. So in this case, not only these arguments that show that the understanding of the text is incorrect, but there are texts, other texts, many of them strong and acceptable and weak and very weak, even strong and acceptable and weak and very weak, that indicate that visiting the grave of Rasulullah ﷺ was done before by our predecessors, by our Salaf, and that it is praiseworthy. I mean, visiting the grave meaning initiating a travel to visit the grave. Because Imam Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah ta'ala does not say that visiting the grave is wrong. On the contrary, he does say visiting the grave is a great ibadah, is a great qurbah. But his point is, his issue is, what? To initiate a travel, a safar, with the intent to visit the grave. Then what's the solution for him? Well, the solution is, even if the grave were outside of the masjid, supposes you have the niyyah to go visit the masjid. And then when you are there, you walk to the grave to visit Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That's fine, that's okay. But to say, to initiate a safar directly for that, that's wrong. That's where he, rahimahullah ta'ala, seemed to have gone, let me put it rationally, against the well-established, expert, scholarly opinions of all of those, almost all of those who preceded him. up to when he lived, and he lived, rahimahullah ta'ala, in the 7th and 8th century Hijri, because he died in 723, I believe, in 723 Hijri, the Hijri calendar, and when the Mongols were in that part of the world, and when they were, they started to leave, and when still the Crusaders were, some of them still in some of the part of the Muslim countries there. And there are texts also that teach that. Now, one thing about also rational texts, when you say, let's say the other thing, well, this text is weak. It has no, this text is weak. Everybody now, from the youth and those who learn contemporarily, everybody has taken this for granted. Everybody of us has taken this for granted. A weak text has no authority. Yes? No, I'm still at this point. I thought you had about the weak text. Yes. Mm. Both. Both. Yeah, but what I told you, what did you understand from what I told you? If I told you, don't initiate a travel except 2-3 masajid. Exactly, that's what we were trying to explain. That's exactly what we were trying to explain. Yes, I said yes, context. Not always, I'm just saying in this issue, because I think I know where you could be heading. That doesn't mean always. In this issue, yes, it's a matter of context, of course. Oh, no doubt about it. That's why we said, in the context of what he was talking about, sallallahu alaihi wasallam, what was he meaning? We have proven that he could not have meant that. And we were mentioning. Right, exactly. If you know the details, then you either say it should not have started at all, but then he was not just a lay person. This man Ibn Taymiyyah was very special. He was an encyclopedia of texts in his mind, believe me, and he was very bright. But he knew so much that sometimes when you know so much, it might crowd in there, and then you, at one point, you don't organize them well, and you might, make mistakes. And plus, for Allah to show us, no one is perfect except Rasulullah. So that's why, what do? We speak of rationally. Well, he is an expert, rahimahullah ta'ala. But rationally, we're human beings. We are fallible. What if an expert, as we say, understands something different than 100 experts? So logical safety, rational safety, by experience, you have to stick with the 100 experts. That's why in the court of law you have always an expert testimony. An expert testimony weighs a lot in a court of law versus, the testimony of regular people. Yes, it's that. That's why we have to, go to this one. The other point I was on, and I said there is a lot more, by the way, on this issue. There's a lot more that can be said to resolve this issue in the way that I believe is right. That is the opinion of the majority. That you do go visit the grave of Rasulullah, even through specific travel to the place. That's what I believe is right, rationally, logically, historically, and spiritually. Allah Ta'ala. Now, another issue, as I said, the weak text. So, a weak text, hadith da'if. You know what hadith da'if is? Most of you would know this. You're used to this, right? This is a weak text, a weak hadith. So it has become almost common practice by new students of ilm and these last 2-3 decades, etc. A few more. That weak text has no relevance. Weak text, because there is a sahih text and there is Hasan text. Now let's talk about Hasan text. In the earlier time there was Sahih and not Sahih. But let's talk about, there is Sahih, Hasan and Da'if. Authentic, good and weak. Authentic and good are authoritative in terms of the deen as sources of knowledge. They are authoritative. You can use them as an authority. A weak text, what's happened to weak text? A weak text, the answer is usually weak text
It's still good.
is rejected.
Still good because the laws of the weak text are so stringent that in the chain of the scholars, even if one writes once, the text is called weak, whereas all these things that we do nowadays, the weak text is still a million times more authenticated than.
Well, that's another, that's part of the discussion, Jazakallah khair. But in the early discourse, the logical early discourse of the value, authority of a weak text versus an authentic text or Hasan text, is it worth anything? The point is, nowadays, some people, some scholar followed, as others who follow ila ذلك by the tens of thousands nowadays, and taught in some universities and some madaris, that the weak text, and some masajid, many imams who know something, but not know many things, espouse this approach. And some lay people, educated lay people, lay meaning in the expert sense of ilm, that a weak hadith is useless, garbage, has no use. That is utterly, deadly wrong. But here's a rule. Here's a weak text. First of all, what's a weak text? That's another long discourse. What is the value of a weak text? Well, you say, Hafizakallah ya Sheikh, you say, a weak text, I have no use of it. Well, don't make that, but then it is made as a definitive, conclusive, the only existing opinion or rule. The weak hadith is not used at all. And this itself would be a bid'ah. An innovation. This does not exist in this way among the early progenitors of this discipline, this logical discipline of textual criticism of hadith. So you're going to hear it, and you have heard it oftentimes, oh, this is a weak hadith, rejected. No. A weak hadith is not rejected in totality. Why? Because the expert, first of all, the first thing I have to tell you, I cannot go into details because most of us here don't understand those details, and it takes a course of intermediary or advanced to talk about these issues. But the thing that we have argued so far is, what do the expert scholars say? What do the expert scholars say? That's what we need to look at. The expert scholars of this discipline of ilm al-hadith and hadith criticism. When you look at that, we don't find them rejecting the weak hadith in totality. No. From early on, Al-Imam Abu Hanifa, Al-Imam Malik, and I know where these sources all are. الإمام الشافعي, الإمام Ahmad ibn Hanbal, rahimahullah ta'ala, and before them and after them, Abu Hatim al-Razi, Abu Zur'a al-Razi, even al-Bukhari, Muslim, al-Tirmidhi, Ibn Majah, Abu Dawood, al-Nasa'i, and those who came after, Al-Hakim, Ibn Hibban, Ibn Khuzaymah, Al-Bayhaqi, and then later Al-Imam al-Nawawi, and down Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, Al-Dhahabi before, Ibn Hajar al-Asqalani, and then Shawkani. Until now, the expert scholars have never rejected hadith weak in totality. And yet, it has become now fashion amongst some people, young people also, well-meaning, but they don't know because they have not diversified their sources of knowledge. They don't know. And they are so enthusiastic and passionate about it that sometimes it gets to the point of ferocity and of violence. And yet, if Allah granted us and them a little more patience and maturity and sincerity and exposure to scholarly expert sources, we would know different. We would know these things. That these names that I mentioned to you, they're all used weak texts with certain conditions, but not rejected in totality. As long, for example, of those conditions, as long as there is no other stronger, authentic text that opposes that text. Obviously, logically, if you have a strong authoritative text that says something different than a weak text, logically, which one do I take? I take the strong. And again, decided strong by whom? By me? By the expert who have the scholarly expertise to recognize that and to study it that way. So a weak text is taken under certain conditions. And some of those conditions, when there is, for example, no authentic text opposing it. Or when there is no other issue, no text authentic in this matter at hand. Or in matters of virtues and merits and spirituality and morality, that weak texts are used also in ahkam and in fada'il al-aman. In ahkam, like I mentioned, as long as there is nothing stronger than it, opposing it. Or opposing it, for example, just to make it brief, Al-Imam al-Nawawi summarizes this, this logic, and he says, rahimahullah ta'ala, وَيَجُوزُ عند أهل الحديث وغيرهم ويجوز عند أهل الحديث وغيرهم التساهل في الأسانيد ورواية ما سوى الموضوع من الضعيف والعمل به من غير بيان ضعفه من غير تبيين ضعفه في غير الأسماء والصفات وأحكام الحلال والحرام. So he says, rahimahullah ta'ala, summarizing this rule, that it is well established, it is lawful, permissible among the experts of hadith and others, meaning the fuqaha, that you can be lax and we can relax the stringent conditions that you require for the chain of narrations of the hadith of the texts. You can relax that. Don't be as stringent. And to report, therefore, of the ahadith that are weak or very weak, except the spurious, except the mawdu', except the mawdu', you can report it and act upon it without even indicating that it is weak. You don't have to. If you do, that's fine. The ulama did both. As long as it is not in matters that is of aqeedah, names and attributes of Allah Azza wa Jal, for example, nor in matters of ahkam such as halal and haram. In other words, a text that makes something haram halal, or something that was halal makes it haram through a weak text. He said that, no. But you can use it otherwise. And there is a wide range of using those weak texts as well. To the extent that the scholars, even like Imam Abu Hanifa, who was extremely rational, he had the ulama say he had an amazing ability. If he has the text, he has an amazing ability of logical analysis. Rahimahullah ta'ala. So even he, and he's known with his emphasis also on rational argument and on qiyas, that he, in the face of qiyas, when there is a text, even weak text, he prefers the weak text over qiyas, reasoning by analogy. Even Abu Hanifa, Shafi'i did that, Malik did that, Ahmad bin Hanbal, well known, rahimahullah ta'ala, in doing that. All of them used weak texts. For example, in contradistinction or in the face of even reasoning by analogy. And so on and so forth. Sometimes they use weak texts also in matters where it is more prudent. There is no text, but then there is this text, something seems to be okay to do, but there is a weak text that indicates it is makruh or haram. Then it is prudent to take the weak text because it's a matter of prudence for one's faith, for one's deen with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. My point by this, especially much more relaxed when it comes to merits and virtues and morality and spirituality. To do things more dhikr, or this dhikr, or that dhikr, or this dua, or that dua, or this fasting, or that fasting, through weak text, even very weak text, as long as they are not mawdu', spurious. This is the practice of most of the expert scholars. So if a scholar, and he was not, rahimahullah ta'ala, an expert at this level like these names that I have mentioned, if he comes, rahimahullah ta'ala, and says, weak text, they have no use. Those of us who learn the fact that we don't learn from scholars necessarily what they say. When you become a serious student of ilm, you learn from them how they think. As free scholars. And a free scholar teaches me to think in an Islamic moral way, rational spiritual way, freely. And that freedom made me find out that there are other scholars, experts like you, greater than you, whose views were opposite to yours. And logically, if I don't know anything even, safety, logical safety and faith safety is to go with the, and not just majority. Whose majority? Which majority? No, so it's not majority of we have opinions, because people do that too. Million lay person and one expert who's right in matters of expertise of their fields, of course. Let's take 1 million lay persons. All of them didn't even make it to high school, even if there are 1 billion of them. They didn't finish high school, and then you post to them an issue in quantum mechanics, and they have all an opinion. Nowadays, everybody can have an opinion, which differs from the Nobel Prize winner in that field. Which one should we take? It is that simple. It is that simple in our deen as well. So this matter, my dear brothers, hafizakumullah, and sisters, the second one, matter of a weak hadith. weak hadith is not to be rejected like this. So if we find an expert alim who mentions a weak hadith and he knows it's a weak hadith, but he mentions it as an evidence. He mentions it as also to practice in matters, for example, of virtues and merits, and he knows it is. Al-Bukhari himself, the master expert, does that. For example, Al-Adab al-Mufrad, there are a lot of ahadith by him, he knows they are weak. But he mentions them in this chapter and in that chapter and this chapter, and he knows they are because they are in matters of virtues and merits. And the rule after that, when it comes to that, this is all right. And a weak hadith logically doesn't mean Rasulullah ﷺ did not say it or did not do it. What does it mean, probabilistically speaking? No. Logically speaking, the value of a weak hadith. As I said to you, it doesn't mean that Rasulullah ﷺ did not say it. I'm giving you a hint already. No, logically, not think logically. Think of your math and your logic. Some of you are engineers and... It's what? No.
I would say
that's a sahih hadith, mind you. That's an authentic hadith. That's more likely he did than he did not. The probability is greater than 0.5, if you will. That's a hadith sahih. It's not one. That's certitude. One is certitude, is yaqeen. Sahih is ahad. Sahih is greater than 0.5, less than 1. So hadith da'if means that the scholar stops. There is in it logically something that says it could have been said by Rasulullah ﷺ, and there is in it that which says maybe not. In other words, the scholar stops. Da'if means we cannot say surely it is from Rasulullah ﷺ, or probabilistically with more likelihood. Say we stop. That's why they wait for other indicators and they study, etc. So if you reject it, you are rejecting also a probability that you're rejecting something probably, at some probability, small probability maybe, but it may turn out to be in reality authentic. But in analysis, in probabilistic analysis, it seems to the scholar that it doesn't have that much evidence. So for me to ascertain that it has been said by Rasulullah. Pardon? Now it looks quantum mechanics. A lot of uncertainties. Huh? So that's what it means. When you reject a weak hadith, if you reject it in totality, you're rejecting. If you reject 1, 2, 100, out of those 100 or 1,000, probabilistically speaking, how many could have been actually from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam? So that's why the earliest ulama, the masters like Al-Bukhari, did not reject them. They recorded them, they wrote them, and they used them with rational caution, with rational caution, and they used them when using them does not cause any unnecessary inconsistency or discrepancy or harm. So hadith da'if does not mean that Rasulullah ﷺ did not say it. There is still a probability that he did say it, but in the scholarly perspective, rationally speaking, we don't seem to have that evidence to ascertain that. That's why they have many other means by which it makes this weak text in the fiqhi sense, not in the textual criticism sense. In the fiqhi sense, it becomes stronger. For example, did you know that a weak text becomes authoritative if the early scholars, experts, have acted upon it? عليه العمل. It's a weak text in the Sanad theoretically, but if that text from the early times, the meaning of it, the context, the text of it, the meaning of it, the content of it was practiced, then that weak text becomes stronger. Because that probability now increased because we have these experts who took it because they were not only rational but spiritual, and they acted upon it. So it becomes stronger. And there are many other ways. My point here, we have to stop. My point here is, it's not a matter of only Quran and Sunnah. Well, we differ because we follow Quran and Sunnah and you don't. And I'm telling you Quran and Sunnah, and you're telling me Malik, and you're telling me Al-Bukhari, and you're telling me Abu Hanifa, and you're telling me Imam Ahmad. Now, do you understand what's going on? If we understand what's going on, then write an essay for next time. No, really. I suggest. I don't impose it. Write an essay in which you explain to yourselves and to me, I might ask you to read it, and in which you write what these two classes have taught you. What have you drawn from this? And I would like it to be as succinct, as clear, as logical as possible. Like you're going to get a grade, in college. I'm not going to do that. Of course, this is just for me. I hope to encourage you to learn better. And usually when we conduct retreats for people who are very seriously retreating for knowledge and practice, that we do. And we write essays, and people are very, very, very serious. I learned greatly from those people who are very serious. And they write their essays, and they write their reflections in ways that are sometimes just so inspiring. So if you want to do it also in this class, though we speak about rational things also, which are very important to help us with our spiritual dimension. When you are rationally grounded, you feel even lighter spiritually. It's very important. You can't have a body without a skeleton. Skeleton keeps you firm. If there is no skeleton, there's only flesh, what happens? It doesn't stand. So the ilm, the shara, the rational is that skeleton. And then skeleton by itself has no life. You have to have flesh and blood and soul. Both together are what constitutes the body of our deen. Inshallah ta'ala, wa sallallahu wa sallim wa barik ala Sayyidina Mawlana Muhammadin wa ala alihi al-tahirin wa ashabihi al-mayamin wa tabi'in lahum bi ihsanin ila yawm al-din. Subhanak Allahumma wa bihamdika ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.